Blinken has gone to China. Now, we have been seeing the State Department and higher-ups in the executive branch, so to speak, desperately traveling across the world, begging these countries not to go to BRICS, not to ditch the dollar. They've gone to Africa. They've gone to Saudi Arabia. Shoot, they've even done a deal with Iran. As a matter of fact, Iran's the one filling our strategic petroleum reserves. Please don't leave us. We can fill our reserves. And now we've got Blinken in China. And considering all the tension that's going on, because China's back in Russia, and the idiocy of what is coming out of the executive branch's mouths to instigate China, I wanted to see if we would see humility in Blinken. Fear, defiance, what's going on. So we're going to go in order from the landing to the handshakes to the meeting to the after speech. I think you'll find it just as interesting as I did. I don't think he's waving at anyone because he's too quick to look away. Usually if you've got a large crowd that, is looking at you, you tend to give a lot of eye candy to it. It strokes the human ego. So he goes into looking down, watching his feet as he goes down the stairs. We have a tight smile and it's down in a frown, so stress, dislike. Now, it looks like the American ambassador and his Chinese, I cannot remember his rank, but he's not Xi, obviously. Very polite, tight-lipped smile even from the Chinaman. The ambassador is much more loose and warm. You see a genuine smile all the way up through the forehead and into behind the ears. And then the bastard just walks off, smiling, all gone, standing straight up and tall, arrogance, nose up, leaves these two gentlemen behind. Now, they're at an airport. They may not be riding in the same car, but the cars are parked together and he has walked off on them. So there is no actual video footage of him meeting. And I hate doing picture body language because one, fluid movement, it paints a sentence, a paragraph. Snapshots are the equivalent of one word. You can get some kind of context, but that's about it. Now, the other part of this is his initial meeting was with the lower of the Chinese power structure. Begrudgingly, I'm going to assume, because he was not slated to meet Xi Jinping on Sunday, and he did. We have this as in photo lineup. Xi Jinping does not walk across, obviously, to him. From what we see here, Blinken has to make the travel all the way towards him. Xi Jinping, at least in this photo, we see the arm completely extended from Blinken, and Xi's arm is loosely out, not an extension. It's like, you come all the way to me.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
And here's another one. He's either in the process of positioning himself to be more comfortable for this photo, talking about Blinken, or he is so stressed and uncomfortable he's leaned forward and bent over. That's why we don't like photos. I like this photo because it just shows the setup. You've got Xi at the head of the table. He's distanced himself from everyone. And he's put himself at the head of power, even above his own cabinet. And he's put Blinken in the same arena. The confidence is gone. He walks up those stairs very lightly. The body does not lean forward to immediately access the stairs. It's like when you're in a hurry or if you're in confidence, you have an aggressive stance. You lean forward with speed in mind. He does not. That is gone. He also has his hands up like a tired fighter.
Good evening. Oh, slow news day, huh? I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to Ambassador Burns, to our entire mission China, with whom I've had an opportunity to spend time over the past couple of days.
So he had a hard time anchoring himself in. That's why you see him shift his weight so much. He's looking around and then he's not just looking around like at the audience. He's looking literally around in a circle because he's trying to anchor himself. He's looking for some comfort and he's having a hard time finding it. Let's go to some questions.
We'll take a few questions. The first question goes to Ian Marlowe with Bloomberg.
Thank you, Secretary. China's accused the U.S. of economic containment over the Biden administration's efforts to limit Beijing's access to key technology, including semiconductors, as you mentioned. Are you worried that the future U.S. moves in that area will derail the current efforts to stabilize ties with China and might force the Chinese to...
Now you see that brought his hands in, body's kind of waving, and the head gives like these micro positive movements. And you saw a micro negative as he's coming up with this question. And he's gone tight and small.
take retaliatory measures, perhaps in other areas of the relationship? And after your talks here in China, secondly, what's your impression of the top leadership's stance on Ukraine, whether they are still likely to provide eventually lethal aid to Russia, or are they at all interested in using their influence with Vladimir Putin to bring about a diplomatic solution to the conflict? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. So on the first part of the question, one of the important things for me to do on this trip was to disabuse our Chinese hosts of the notion that we are seeking to economically contain them. We're not.
Seeking economically to contain them. And his whole body moves like a stiff stick in a bow. And then you see the lip on the side curl up like a treasure cat. Obviously, that's deception. When you go stiff like that and then you have a little sneer on your face, you're a liar.
And as I've said, we are not about decoupling. We're about de-risking and diversifying. And here's what I mean by that. First, when it comes to decoupling or economic containment, I think the facts simply belie that proposition. As I mentioned, our trade relationship reached the highest number that it's.
You're hearing the song. While he does this, the Believe Me Look is his best friend. He's going down the path of, I'm going to now make my case for why we're doing what we're doing. And as his brain stutters through this, he's making excuses for the behavior he's blatantly done. And he's going to ramble on like this for a while, and we are not going to watch it. It's the nails on a chalkboard.
I have a question about the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And the last year, China has been giving special importance to the BRICS. And even though the government says it's not an anti-China, anti-US bloc, many people see it this way. The last development gave some reasons for people to think like that. There was claims from the US that South Africa is giving weapons to Russia. China wants to expand the BRICS. There's almost 20 countries already lining up to join the BRICS, mostly from Global South.
So this guy is reading out his question, basically. He's setting it up so that he corners Blinken into acknowledging the facts that are coming out. Like, everybody wants to join BRICS. It's an anti-West thing. And Blinken's response, the face falls and the frown. His body's coming tight and closer together. And he's kind of cocked his head to the side, staring at this guy who's bringing up the Achilles heel to the West power. And he's not happy about it.
And my president, President Lula, here in China said that, criticized very strongly the dominance of the dollar in the world economy. So my question is, how does the U.S. government see?
Now we're seeing him shift back and forth on his weight. The stress is coming through. He's gone tight. He's gone small. The face is frowning. He's not a happy man. The arrogance is back. That's how unhappy he is. He's been slapped by China, and I'm going to assume they didn't get what they wanted. And now this guy is just reaming him with some facts. Facts don't care about your feelings.
The BRICS, does it see it as a China-led challenge to the West and to the United States? Thank you.
Well, first, as a general proposition, we have long stood for the proposition that countries should be able to freely associate with other countries in any groupings that they want. It's something.
So we are in portrayal. He's had enough time listening to this and being angry to think this up. Portrayal, the believe me look is now plastered. And on top of that, he's actually leaning forward with this believe me look. Believe me. It just gives more power to the believe me look. When you lean forward into it, I will overpower you with my hovering and you will believe what I say.
That we stand very strongly for and have defended for a long, long time. When it comes to the BRICS, we're deeply engaged with its leading members. In fact, this week, Prime Minister Modi of India will be in Washington for a state visit. And of course, we welcomed President Lula to Washington several months ago, where he had a very productive and constructive meeting with President Biden. So we're engaged across the board with...
There's a lot of negativity in that head when it comes to these individuals that are visiting and have visited. Not in the sense of negative itself, but in the sense of brushing it off. Like it doesn't bother us. We have them all the time. It's no biggie. That kind of brushing off. We're besties. They come and visit us.
Members of the BRICS, and we'll continue to do that.
For the next question, Nike Ching with Voice of America.
He was so done with that question and so upset that he literally, before he completely was done answering it, he turned away from that guy like, nope, you ain't gonna ask me follow-ups. You're not gonna scream. You're not gonna sit there and say, but, nothing. I'm just gonna turn away from you and ignore you.
Good evening, Mr. Secretary. I hope you make more news from this news conference. On Taiwan, how was Taiwan discussed in your 35-minute meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping? U.S. officials have said a military conflict in the Taiwan Strait will be, quote, a global concern. We'll have a presidential election in 2024. Should a Democrat...
So in the beginning of this question, I didn't want to comment on it, but I guess I will. His facial features softened. He was smiling. He kind of slumped down in the relaxed mode. And then the stress has come back because this is a Taiwanese asking about, hey, so what was discussed? What's our fate? He's anchoring himself down.
election be a pretext to any military escalation in the Taiwan Strait? How do you...
And we're seeing his breathing increase here too, bigly. It's bigly. So he can't anchor himself. He's not been able to anchor himself the whole time he's been here. Now the breathing has increased bigly. The face has fallen, not in that arrogance or harshness because the head is angled down just to view her.
Respond to China's position.
We saw a hard swallow.
That Taiwan is
Another hard swallow.
Internal issue that is not an American concern and upon which there is no room for compromise. Thank you. 谢谢.
Thank you. From the very beginning of our normalization of relations with China, going back to the 3 communiques many years ago, fundamental to us in that is the understanding that any differences regarding Taiwan will be resolved peacefully.
So as he goes through this, he's speaking very slowly because the brain is trying to make it up as it goes along. He's just leaving out the song. But it's there. It's just silent. And on top of it, we have the believe me look. The hands are raised up closer to the titty area, holding on to himself, high stress. Oh, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to feed you to the wolves.
That is foundational to how we understand our relationship. And for the past almost 5 decades, this is an issue that China and the United States have managed responsibly. We remain committed to our One China policy with the 3 communiques, the Taiwan Relations Act, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan's independence. We've made clear that we oppose any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We've been clear and consistent in our policy.
So as this goes on, he has already angled himself away from her. He wants to stop because I'm going to assume in this 35-minute meeting that Taiwan is mine via Xi, and you will go pound sand somewhere and let us do what we want. And Blinken said, yes, sir. I just assume that. I have no hard evidence, but it just appears that way to me.
You said that you have received assurances. Well, you said the United States has received assurances from China that they will not provide lethal aid to Russia. Were those assurances specifically made to you today? And do you believe that is a final decision on behalf of Chinese leadership, given the U.S. has said that they are considering providing lethal aid to Russia in the past?
So she asked this question, and I think this is probably one of the most important about this lethal aid going to Russia. Because once you have China committed to sending their lethal aid, because they got a lot of it, it's kind of like the lethal aid that Europe and the U.S. are already sending over for Ukraine. But I digress. I'm watching him, and I'm expecting something. If you guys talked about not sending over lethal aid, I would expect that the mind would sit there and agree to it. The brain search would sit there and go, yeah, we got that, or that's a win, or a relief that they're not going to get any more involved than what they have. And what do we see from Blinken? We see avoidance. Doesn't want to look at her. The body is tight. It's not relaxing. It's constantly thinking. And if I remember correctly,
Well, you said the United States has received assurances from China that they will not provide lethal.
the United States has received assurances. Nothing, just a poker face. It tells me there is no assurances, or what is being construed as an assurance is really something of you have until blah, 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 and then it's on. That's the assurance. The assurance is for right now, it's not going to happen. But on blah, blah, blah date, that's when it changes. I have no idea. But Poker Face Boy here says otherwise.
We did all of that on this trip, but progress is hard. It takes time, and it's not the product of.
So he's going on about the relationship. Progress is hard. You see the flippancy of it. You also see the avoidance of her. He's already turned his body away from her. He wants to get away from it. We're in portrayal, and we have the believe me look.
And in places, constructive. And in other places, we have a lot more work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering what that look was for. So I was watching that last end piece is talking about, the progress of their relationship now. And you see that tight lip like squishes in like he's giving kisses, but it's a lip tightening. The believe me look with it. Like, ooh, it's bad. It smells like something really dead. Not a little bit dead, but sitting in there for a few weeks smelling bad dead look.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for gold subscribers.